Episode 1. Paisley Springs a Surprise. I normally don't like Mondays, but this one, 29th of November 1999, is different. I'm excited. We're finally getting round to devolution, 600 or so days since the agreement was signed. I'm sitting in the officials' gallery overlooking the assembly chamber, where I've already witnessed some very interesting events. The day had started with a very acrimonious debate on the validity of Seamus Mahon's resignation, and a failed attempt by Ian Paisley and others to exclude Sinn Féin members from the executive. After that, we had the long process of nominations for the executive's 10 ministerial offices, and that was when things really kicked off. There had been utter pandemonium in the chamber and in the galleries when Sinn Féin nominated Martin McGuinness as the Minister Designate of Education. To me, it was almost unthinkable that this man, widely assumed to be an IRA commander, could be placed in charge of the education of our wee ones. It certainly brought it home to me that the realities of devolution were going to be uncomfortable for some, and the initial presiding officer, its IPO, Lord Alderdice, had to threaten to clear the galleries if the aggressive shouting, screaming and name-calling continued. Things eventually settled down, and after an adjournment which allowed us all a bite to eat, we've returned to the gallery for the business of setting up 10 shadow statutory committees and for appointments of chairs and deputy chairs for each of these committees. The chair of the Education Committee is unsurprisingly nominated first, and the Regional Development Committee chair is next to go. Then, according to devolved, it is the DUP's turn to nominate, and Dr. Ian Paisley, the party's nominated officer, slowly stands up. It's my first time seeing him this close-up, but his physical presence and his booming voice are exactly like they are on TV, as he announces, very clearly, "I choose the chair of the Agriculture and Rural Development Committee, and I nominate myself." There's a loud gasp in the gallery. Sitting alongside me are Martin and Stephen, the three of us making up the small team that are lined up to support that very committee. I look at them accusingly, but we all know that the gasper was me. Martin, with his silver hair, is one of a number of committee clerks who have been preparing for devolution since July 1998, while I only took up my new post of assistant committee clerk last Thursday, as did Stephen, the executive support officer. He's a lot younger than I. So we're not yet very familiar with each other. What we are, however, is optimistic, hopeful that devolution will represent a seismic change in local politics, and that we might just be on our way towards a peaceful and stable future. That's what the agreement is meant to bring us, after all. We titter uneasily when the IPO asks Dr. Paisley if he will accept his own nomination. He has to ask. It's part of the formal procedures, and the good Lord is a strict follower of those. We titter again when Dr. Paisley says that he will indeed. I glance at Martin and Stephen, who both look as stunned as I feel. Dr. Paisley as our chair? Wow. We're about to work alongside a giant of a man, a legend, a firebrand preacher whose nose, maze and especially like bars can bring thousands onto the streets, and the man who is on record as wanting nothing to do with the Good Friday Agreement or its institutions, like the Assembly. And yet, here he is, volunteering to play the leading role in one of the Assembly's committees. I didn't see that coming at all. We'd heard no rumours that the big man had planned to give himself a job, and we are truly stunned when he does. Had I been aware at this point that chairs of statutory committees were to get an additional £10,000 a year salary, I might have been less surprised. After a little while, George Savage of the Austrian Unionist Party, ruddy-cheeked and unknown to me, but apparently a farmer, accepts nomination to the position of Deputy Chairman of our committee, the first deputy role to be appointed. That's our two positions sorted. At 8:46 p.m, the sitting is suspended, and it's time to go home. I don't expect a great deal of sleep tonight. I'm going to be working with Ian Paisley. My goodness. It's the next day, and the Assembly sitting is resumed at 10:30, then suspended almost immediately to allow party whips to agree the membership of the 10 statutory committees. That is a big job, but there has been a surprising willingness among the parties to cooperate, and members' names for all 10 committees are announced shortly after 4 p.m. In addition to the chair and deputy chair, we now know who the rest of our members will be. Now, I'm immediately struck by three things. Ian Paisley Jr. is joining his father on the committee. 6 different parties are represented on it, and crucially, 2 of the committee are Sinn Féin MLAs. How on earth will the committee be able to function with the DUP leader as chair, I wonder, given his party's insistence that it would not work with Sinn Féin, and not forgetting his personal vow to smash that party? It's shortly after the announcement of the committee's membership, and Martin and I are waiting in the corridor outside Dr. Paisley's party leader room in Parliament Buildings. Here they come. I'm a little bit thrilled as Dr. Paisley's entourage breezes along the corridor towards us. A lad has obvious presence, and those walking deferentially behind him include his son, some party staff, and 2 burly RUC minders. Martin whispers to me that they're called Close Protection Officers, or CPOs. As we all go into the office, Dr. Paisley says, "My men will wait in the side room while we have our meeting." I've been told that anyone with a weapon is meant to check it into the armoury, which sits close to the main entrance, when they arrive at Parliament Buildings. However, given their bulging suit jackets, I'm convinced that Dr. Paisley's men have more immediate access to theirs. The other staff also head off to another room, but Ian Jr. remains with the chairman. Introductions are made, and Dr. Paisley calls Martin Mr. Clark for the first time. I quite like that. I am, however, feeling a bit uncomfortable that Ian Jr. has stayed with us. Jr. has no more business attending our meeting with the chairman than any of the other committee members, I think. However, Dr. Paisley quickly clears that up by telling us that Ian Jr. is to be his parliamentary private secretary, or PPS, and that the committee team can approach Jr. if we need to deal with papers or make contact when he's unavailable. It has occurred to us that Dr. Paisley might be hard to get hold of, given his triple role as an MEP, MP, and now MLA and committee chair, and this feels like a very practical and welcome solution. Pleasantries over, Dr. Paisley suggests we come through the list of Agriculture Committee members. Ian Jr. grabs a printout and reads the names out one by one, making a snide or flippant remark about each member. He clearly thinks he's being a wit. I can't help thinking he's only half right. When he comes to the Sinn Féin members, Jr. says, "Well, he's a gunman, and oh, there's another gunman." I'm not entirely sure whether or not he's joking, but I am taken aback by his informality in front of the assembly officials he's only just met. His father doesn't react or try to intervene, but Dr. P's demeanour is much more formal, more professional. Then again, he has a lot of parliamentary experience as an MP and MEP, and I'm aware that it's Ian Jr.'s first major political role. The list finished, and with many of the characters suitably assassinated, Dr. Paisley has an idea. "I think we should have all the members round to the house for everyone to get to know each other, and Mummy can make them tea." My mouth falls open. I catch Martin's eye, and his expression confirms that I haven't misheard. A shocked looking Ian Jr. splutters, "No, Dad, we can't do that. There's 2 shitters on the committee." Dr. Paisley quickly backtracks, but I think we've just seen Ian Jr. playing a minder role, and I wonder if we'll be seeing much more of that sort of thing in the coming weeks and months. It's the day after our meeting with the Paisleys. Stephen and I are in our open plan office on the 4th floor of Parliament Buildings, making final preparations for the committee's first meeting. We've just come back from a coffee break with Clark and colleagues, during which I got a real sense of the excitement and anticipation that is building among all the committee teams. My office phone rings. On the other end of the call is a very familiar voice, much imitated, including by me, and the chairman announces that he is looking for Mr. Clark. Now, I'm aware that there are only 5 committee clerks covering 10 statutory committees, and that Martin is clerking the Finance Committee too, so I'm not surprised that he hasn't answered his phone, but I realise, with a small shiver, that Martin's phone has redirected to mine. Trying to suppress the sudden adrenaline surge, I remind Dr. Paisley that we met yesterday, and I ask how I can help. We need to get the minister and the permanent secretary up in front of the committee next week, he says. Get that organised, will you? Well, my 11 years' experience as a departmental official immediately kicks in. In my world, permanent secretaries are revered, and you have to make an appointment to meet one. But as for getting to see a minister, even harder. Correspondence casework, diary secretaries, briefing. These things take time, you know. So, putting on my best Sir Humphrey manner, polite and reassuring with just a touch of patronisation, I relay these realities to the chairman, doing my best to sound helpful, but really seeking to manage his expectations. That lasts all of about 10 seconds. Then the chairman makes his expectations crystal clear to me. Things are different now. The minister and her department are accountable to my committee, he tells me. Things will also need to get done much quicker than you might be used to, he insists, adding that I need to understand that the committee team, me included, is there to ensure that the committee's needs are met and met immediately. I find myself sitting bolt upright in my previously comfortable office chair, and Sir Humphrey has been replaced by a parade gown private, whose only permissible response is, "Sir, yes, sir, I'll get on to it right away, sir." Hampered somewhat by the rocket now trailing from my backside, I rush off to find Mark and discuss how to approach the department. We make a couple of calls, and it's clear things have changed at their end too, with the Minister, Breach Rogers, and the Permanent Secretary agreeing to meet with Dr. Paisley 2 days later. It had amused me somewhat that the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, a new name from my old department, had been the last portfolio to be chosen, and I wondered, in fact, what Mrs. Rogers had let herself in for. It's the 9th of December 1999, and today sees the first meeting of the committee. There's a frisson of excitement as the chairman calls the meeting to order. No one knows how this is going to go, and we're anxious that there could be an almighty row if the chairman fails to acknowledge or to include the Sinn Féin members. Rumours are this might be the case. Here we go. It's Dr. Paisley who, as chair, calls members to speak. I hold in my breath because it's determined the Sinn Féin members to say something. With his pen, the doc taps the table 2 or 3 times. Then, and I can see his eyes are firmly closing at this stage, he points his pen in the direction of first Jerry McHugh, then Francie Malloy. It's quite clear that he's inviting them to speak, and they do, but he isn't calling them by name or making eye contact with them. I reckon it's a pragmatic submission, and looking round and now breathing normally again, I can see the rest of the team are as relieved as I. I should report that Dr. Paisley continued to use the pen to facilitate the Sinn Féin members' contributions throughout his time as chair, and many months later, when defending his chairmanship during a heated exchange in the Assembly chamber, he argued that none of his political opponents could ever say that he had given them a raw deal from the chair. I laughed when he added, "They all admit that I call them carefully. I call some of them preferably, but I do call them all." Well, that would explain why his eyes had closed, I thought. A few committee meetings later, we've reached the end of January. The past 6 or 7 weeks have been like a whirlwind. They have given me a clarity of purpose about my role within the Assembly Secretariat. I feel ready for whatever the year 2000 might bring. It's true that I had one uncomfortable early exchange with Dr. Paisley, but since then, I believe that I've earned some credibility with him, and indeed, that all the committee members are content that they can rely on me completely. The chairman's behaviour is, though, confusing me somewhat. Within the committee, members have just agreed a forward work programme. That's a list of the committee's priority, and it reflects a real sense of working together to a common cause among previously opposing parties. I have clearly seen that this working together is being encouraged, indeed led, by Dr. Paisley. Yet, outside the committee, the mood music isn't good. There is no sign of the hoped-for decommissioning of the IRA's arsenal of weapons, and recriminations about this, and about the outworking of the agreement generally, are becoming a daily feature of the news. It is, of course, Dr. Paisley who is frequently front and centre in terms of his opposition to pretty much everything, and in apportioning blame for pretty much everything to the larger unionist party at its leader. It seems to me that Dr. Paisley is attempting to take two very inconsistent positions, and I can't help wondering how that approach is going to end up, as to worrying how that might affect the team and me. Time will tell.